You're tuned in to Oilers Nation every day with Tyler Yaremchuk, live every weekday on the Nation Network YouTube.
All heaters must come to an end. It was not a Super Sunday for the Edmonton Oilers. Let's get into whatever the hell that was with the lead. Wasn't even close. The Oilers got smoked by the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal smoked meat. Tyler Yaremchuk, Coombsy, along with us on a Monday show. How you doing, Coombsy?
I'm doing good. Was that like the meat reference? Is that a Montana's reference?
Maybe.
Is that what that was? That's
Maybe.
good.
We're going to get into our three big things for Montana's. Welcome into Oilers Nation every day. We are streaming to you live on the Nation Network YouTube, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Coming to you live from the Sports Closet Studio, 3 locations in the Edmonton area: St. Albert Mall, Kingsway Mall, and Sherwood Park Mall. The Nation Network YouTube chat is alive and well on a Monday afternoon, and we are also keeping our eyes glued for some potential waiver news from the Edmonton Oilers, although I think there's a better chance that we get that tomorrow compared to today. I see the Vancouver Canucks have placed Spencer Martin on waivers this morning, and the Jets put Axel Jonsson-Falby on waivers as well. So it sounds like just those 2 players, nothing from the Edmonton Oilers on the waiver front. I know a bunch of people were itching to find out about that. Daniel Shipley was in with the first comment on the Nation Network YouTube. He says, not going to win every game, but that was a very poor performance. Yeah, I mean, if you would have given me a guess before the game started against Montreal, if you were like, hey, the final score is going to be 6-2, I probably would have emptied my bank account on the Oilers winning that hockey game 6-2. I didn't see something that bad coming.
No, I mean, you could have expected them to get maybe edged out by the Habs. The Habs aren't terrible. They're bad, but I mean, teams in the NHL win games, right? Nobody goes 0-82. This is an inevitability. Bad teams still find a way to win. And you look at the schedule, it's the 4th game in 7 nights, second of a back-to-back. I mean, it is 2 afternoon games, so it's not really like a night back-to-back. They still got like a good sleep, but it really just seemed like a team at the end of like a long stretch of travel, just saying,
Yeah. Team that had their Super Bowl party coming up, and Jay and I talked about how maybe that'd be a motivator for them, right? They were apparently allowed to stay in Montreal for their Super Bowl party. Everyone was all excited, but no, it did not work out that well for the Edmonton Oilers. A 6-2 loss. Let's get into our 3 big things for our friends at Montana's. And speaking about big, that's the size of the gift card you can win this week on our social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you follow Oilers Nation. Head over there. Find out how you can win 100 bones to Montana's. You know how many half-price wings that can get you? Head to montanas.ca to check out the full lineup of daily deals. Have you tried Montana's wings yet?
I haven't gotten there yet, but you did mention this to me when we were doing BJ on radio. He was excited.
They're legit.
Them. Not just being like, hey, maybe you should give these a try. You'd like it. He was intense, like looking at me. Like I could see your mouth watering. You were very passionate about this. So I definitely will go to Montana's and enjoy myself some wings. That's a significant recommendation.
3 big things from that game against Montreal, just for me, and it's a trend that we're starting to see a little bit with this team. They're starting to start slow again. And they had kind of gotten that out of their system for the bulk of January. But since coming back from the break, like against Detroit, that first period as a whole was not good. They did not start well against the Philadelphia Flyers. They really didn't start that great against the Ottawa Senators, even though McDavid did get that 1 goal early. When they were winning games in January, it was like, man, they were good for 60 minutes a lot of nights. And we talked yesterday on the pregame show that, you know, good teams find a way to grab wins even when they're maybe not at their best. And that's the sign of like an elite team. It's like, hey, when like a couple areas are maybe struggling for a few games, other areas find ways to pick you up. But the Oilers really just shot themselves in the foot in the first period, got outshot 10-4 at 5-on-5. It just felt like right from the get-go, they had no juice.
Yeah, it kind of feels like, and I mean, this has been a thing for years where it feels as though the Oilers go into a game against a bad opponent on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think we all know that, I said this earlier, in the NHL, there's no automatic wins. There's a league with quite a bit of parity. Even the worst teams are they still win games. But it seems like the Oilers look at opponents, maybe a team like Philly or a team like Montreal, and they're like, yeah, we can skill past these guys. We'll get 4 or 5 power plays, score 2 or 3 times, we'll win this thing easily. And then the other team comes out, checks hard, forechecks well, checks well, box things out, take away the Oilers' skill game and play this tight checking game. and it just doesn't work out for them. And it's something they have to figure out, because you have to play those games against better teams in the playoffs. Like if you go up against the LA Kings or the Vegas Golden Knights, that's how they're going to play in the playoffs.
Yeah. That's part of the reason the LA Kings gave the Oilers fits last year in the playoffs. They play like this really strong, structured style of play, and the Oilers just couldn't really fight through that. You guys are alive and well on the Nation Network YouTube chat. Hammer that like button there. If you're one of the people watching on Facebook, hit the star button there as well. Dr. Gonzo says fatigue physically and mentally, too many dead legs and brain farts. 100%. 100%. And that kind of ties into my second and third points here on three big things is, again, sometimes good teams can have off nights and they'll find ways to win, but you usually either need your goalie to steal you one or your special teams to really come through for you. And Stuart Skinner is my second big thing because he just flat out wasn't good against the Montreal Canadiens. A couple of those goals I think he definitely could have stopped, including an early one when he just decided not to cover up the puck and play it off. I felt like there were just some really dumb mistakes between the pipes there. And listen, Stuart Skinner is a rookie. And I think because of his success early in the season, we kind of just forgot about that fact of it, that he is largely at the NHL level a very inexperienced goalie. There are going to be more games like this. That is totally okay. The expectation was not for this guy to be the savior that he was early in the year. I'm fine with a little blip on the radar when it comes to Stuart Skinner, but the point still stands. He just wasn't that good against Montreal.
No, and I think one of the times where I was on the show with you, I talked about this. The worrying thing about Skinner, and this is going to sound kind of stupid, so bear in mind for a minute. The worrying thing about Skinner when he was playing so well earlier in the season and Campbell was unplayable for like a month. Yeah. Skinner was like the MVP of the Oilers for that period. He was playing so much, but the concerning thing was, I mean, if Campbell didn't heat up and start getting better, Skinner was going to burn out by the midway point because he was playing almost every game in December and January. And it feels like now Campbell's rolling. It'd be good to have him play probably a few games in a row so Skinner can take some time off, rest himself, and be good down the stretch.
Yeah.
Because his load this year has been so significant. Like you said, this is a rookie in the league. This isn't someone who's, 5 years into their NHL career and knows what it's like physically to navigate an entire season. It's a marathon. So they've got to give him a bit of a breather, I think.
Just a quick note, Devon Shore cleared waivers. He was put on waivers yesterday. That is great news for our guy, Liam, who is president of the Devon Shore fan club. He's going to get a chance, Liam, to go back down to Bakersfield. I know that's heartwarming for you.
Well, at least he gets to go down there and prove everybody wrong once again with his silky moves. Like that one where he took on the entire blue line and knocked it in with his foot. You see that one?
No.
Special.
Was that in the NHL or the AHL?
AHL. No goals in the NHL this season.
That'll happen.
We don't have any.
Is this year's Toby Reeder.
If Toby Reeder would have scored 10 to 12 more goals. Yeah, Devon Shore clears waivers. The third thing I had was just kind of a special team slip up from the Edmonton Oilers. Their penalty kill was top 10 in the NHL heading into that game. If you look at it from January on, like the PK had really started to figure itself out for the Oilers. And then they go out and allow 2 goals on 3 attempts. Their power play goes 1 for 6, which is not good. Also, their power play had a chance in that hockey game with, what was that, like 5-6 minutes to go in the second period? Yeah, when they got that extended 5-on-3, and you're like, boom, you were going to tie up this hockey game and you're going to be feeling good going into the third period. You don't score there. With game management, you're not getting another call anytime soon. The Habs are getting the next power play. Sure enough, a super soft call on Evan Bouchard goes against you. Habs score on the power play. You couldn't get a timely goal from your power play. You also couldn't get a timely kill from your PK. And again, if you're flat at 5-on-5 from the jump and your goalie's having an off night and your special teams is junk, you're not going to win hockey games doing that. It's just everything went against them.
Sounds like a poor recipe for success.
It does.
Well, yeah. It was just one of those games, I don't know. You could kind of tell right off the bat that it wasn't going to go well for the others. It took them so long to actually get a shot on goals. So, yeah, if everything just is going wrong, it's going to be tough to get some wins. But this was nice, what Aaron has loaded up on the side here.
Yeah, like, honestly, one of the turning points, it was 3-0 halfway through the second, and Vinny Desharnais said, you know what, I'm going to give this team a bit of a spark. And it was a little bit of a scrappy game at points, but I do like that Desharnais, this to me was recognizing, hey, my guys could use something here. And I know Kane was kind of the one who started the scrum as well, and he was in there with Josh Anderson. But Desharnais being willing to shed the mitts, first career fight as well against a guy in Arbor Xhekaj who has dropped the mitts with some heavyweights so far this season, guys like Zach Kassian. I love this. I love that Desharnais says, you know what, I'm not going to score a goal for this team, but I'm going to try to turn momentum in the right way, in a way I can. It's been a great fit.
Yeah, this is the nice thing about them doing 7 and 11 too with their D and forward format. Is there was points in earlier this season even when it was okay, someone on the Oilers has to drop the mitts. Is it going to be Darnell Nurse or is it going to be Evander Kane? And neither of those is players you want dropping the mitts. Kane, of course, had the wrist injury and the surgery, and he's also one of your top scorers. And then Nurse is your number 1 minute munching defenseman. You don't want him sitting in the box for 5 minutes.
Yep.
So now you have Desharnais. Even if he's sitting off after a fight like this for 5 minutes, it's fine. They have 6 other defensemen. It's perfect.
Those were our 3 big things brought to you by Montana's. I want to get to some of your takes in the YouTube chat. Sergeant Battle was in early on, says conspiracy theory time. The Oilers don't actually want to win the division. Winning means they're more likely to play Colorado or LA, who they played poorly against. I mean, I think you'd rather get home ice advantage. And the bottom line is you're going to have to go through some really good teams at some point in the playoffs. Coming in first, yeah, sure, that means you might have to play LA, but I'd rather play LA than potentially Vegas. I'd probably rather play Seattle than the Kings, but it's close.
There aren't that many matchups you look at that are easy. I mean, even if you went up against Calgary in the first round, like they're not even in a playoff spot right now. And that's not, I don't want to face a charged up version of the Calgary Flames, especially if somehow Jacob Markstrom gets hot. I know that's not something that's happened this year, but there's I don't think there's an easy playoff series.
Yeah. Also, the Minnesota Wild are below the Avs right now, and the Wild are spiraling. I think the Avs are probably due for another heater at some point. I don't think the Avs are going to fall into a wild card spot. I think that's probably going to end up being the Minnesota Wild, or the wild card could very realistically be 2 Pacific Division teams. So if you're the Oilers, you gun for that division title because you want home ice advantage for as long as you can possibly get it. I'm not fully buying into that. Island Tony with some takes about Chychrun. He also adds a nugget that we heard over the weekend from Sportsnet, which was that Vlad Gavrikov has come out and said he's not really, or not, he hasn't come out and said it, but there is word out there that Gavrikov isn't open to signing extensions in Canada. He wants to play south of the border. To me, bullet dodged if that's the case. Like, I don't want to pay a first-round pick plus to get an extended Vlad Gavrikov. And if some team out there does, I say all the power to him. That's not exactly a guy I think the Oilers should be targeting.
No, they've kind of filled this hole internally with Desharnais. And I guess the other question now is Philip Broberg going to fill the hole on the second pairing?
Yeah.
It's yet to be seen. But to go out and acquire a Gavrikov or an Edmondson or someone to play defensively when Desharnais has looked as good as he has, I don't see the point.
A lot of trade talk in here. I know that's what you guys really want to dig into. So we'll touch on that in just a second here. That was our 3 big things brought to you by Montana's. Our trade talk today is going to be brought to you by Star Mechanical, one of Edmonton's top new home plumbing installers for the last 20 years. If you want to learn more about the #1 plumbing and heating company in Edmonton, you're going to head to their website, starmechanical.ca. Also, go give them a follow on Instagram. Who doesn't want to follow Star Mechanical on Instagram? Or if you need some emergency repairs, boom, the number's on the screen, 780-481-8873. If you're an Oilers fan, you need to remember that. It's 780-481 Brandon Davidson, Vinny Desharnais. Okay. It's easy to remember, right, Kubsy? All right, shout out to Star Mechanical. Here's the latest on Jakub Chychrun. We touched on this a little bit on yesterday's show. He's not going to play until he's dealt. Head coach Andre Tournier of the Yotes came out today in Nashville and said that. Chychrun's not playing tonight as the Yotes take on the Preds, and Tournier says he won't play until we have a resolution here. A deal's going to happen right away. Frank Saravalli says this: lots of smoke connecting LA Kings with Jakub Chychrun, but no confirmed fire yet, and so we wait. Elliot Friedman had a few interesting notes on this, saying that there was a holdup in this deal and that it's around one player that they need to get moved to make this trade happen, and they've hit a snag in moving that one player. So it really does sound like on Saturday night, the LA Kings were this close to getting Jakub Chychrun and something happened. I think right now, just assuming that's done is foolish, because if it was done, it would be done. And this isn't the morning after all this happening and they had a night to try sort it out. We're now a couple sleeps away from that. If Chychrun's not done now, Chychrun's on the block. And Frank Saravalli is now reporting that the Coyotes have made it known they're willing to retain on this guy. His $4.6 million contract is already a bargain. And even if they're only willing to keep 25% of it, Jakub Chychrun at $3.3 million or $3.4 million is a hugely different story than Chychrun at 4.6. All of a sudden, his value contract's that much more valuable. Coombsy, I actually don't know where you stand on the Chychrun debate as a whole, but Chychrun retained, does that change your view on it?
My concern with Chychrun was never the salary cap hit, because that was always one of the more attractive things about him as a player, is that he's good and he's young and he has room to grow. He can help the team right now, but he can also improve moving forward. And his salary cap at 4.6 mils isn't really difficult to fit into the picture at all for the Oilers. So, I mean, maybe if they retain some, but then also you have to ask, okay, if you're getting Arizona to retain some cash on this and they're going to be paying Jakub Chychrun to play against them for 2 more seasons after this, then what's that going to cost? And you kind of look at the reported deal from LA as the first round pick and defenseman Brandt Clarke, who they drafted 8th overall in 2021. And this year in the OHL, he put up so far 26 points in 15 games.
Pretty good.
I mean, did the Oilers even have the prospect that's superior to Brandt Clarke to pull this deal off? Is Philip Broberg better?
I think Philip Broberg is an NHL defenseman. Yeah. Brandt Clarke is currently not an NHL defenseman.
He's also a couple years younger.
Yeah, he's younger.
So that might be better, right?
Because that might probably better for Arizona. Yeah, I just like you said, I don't think the Oilers wanted to move Broberg in this deal because he's becoming an established NHL player. Obviously, Chychrun is too, but they don't have a guy like Brandt Clarke because they've just drafted forwards the last however many years.
Yeah, they also haven't had a chance to pick in the top 10 since Philip Broberg when Brandt Clarke was 8th overall that year, right? Yeah. First round, 8th overall. I don't think they have the horses to compete with LA if LA really wants to make this deal happen. Frank said last summer the Kings offered Gabe Vilardi and a first-round pick. Okay, the Oilers don't have a Gabe Vilardi. Like, Dylan Holloway's not Gabe Vilardi. The Oilers don't have any winger, any young winger that is of that caliber. So if the Kings want to get this deal done, they still have the ability to get it done. I'm just intrigued as to what the snag is. Like, who's the player going the other way? Or
salary cap? Somebody from the Kings that costs something they need to move. Because I also saw on Twitter people were speculating that the deal wasn't Brandt Clarke. It involved Quinton Byfield, who they drafted 2nd overall the previous year, 2020.
So the line that Friedman had on his show was, Friedman on the Jeff Merrick show, the halt is because they have hit a snag with a player that is not a key part of the deal and whose contract needs to be moved. They've had difficulty closing that part. He goes on to say this player is critical to the deal because one of these teams wants the player, but he's not critical in a sense it'll make the trade a better hockey deal for one of the two teams. So it sounds like a cap dump. Some sort of a cap dump, but Friedman also adds LA's made it very clear, not just to the Yotes, but to other teams, that Brandt Clarke and Quinton Byfield won't be included. So again, it seems like the Kings are going to are checking down a little bit, which again could be the snag in all of this, right? There could be money retained issues. There could be player retained issues, like a whole bunch of stuff.
The trick with LA though, is they have so many assets. They have so many guys. Like even you take away those guys, like Alex Turco was a 5th overall pick. Maybe it's someone like, is Arthur Kaliev maybe somebody on the table? Like someone like that. They just have so many young pieces. Like for how many years now has it been like, oh, the Kings have so many players to move on?
Yeah, like when you look at that team, never mind the pieces they have that are 26 years old and younger, Kevin Fiala, Adrian Kempe. But when you look at the lower parts of that lineup, they got Byfield, Kaliev, Rasmus Kapari, Gabe Vilardi, and Jared Anderson-Dolan. They have 5 forwards playing every day for them who are under the age of 23. You look at that blue line and pieces like Dursey, Mikey Anderson, and then in the minors with guys like Brandt Clarke, like they have so many young players right there at the NHL level that it's way easier for the Kings to do this deal and say, hey, we're giving up 2 future assets to get a better asset right now. It's just quite frankly easier for them than it is for the Edmonton Oilers to do that. When you look at Philip Broberg and who else do the Oilers have? Broberg, Bouchard. Who else are their high-end defensive prospect pieces? They don't have anymore.
The drop-off is probably...
It's steeper.
Mike Kesselring will be the next one?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, as an offensive guy, it's probably Kesselring. And then it's probably...
Who would that even be next? Kemp? Munzenberger?
Yeah, like it's just
exactly. Like, players nobody has even heard of, probably, half these guys.
Friedman also said something interesting, maybe not so much in regards to Chychrun, but it would tie in. He said he believes the Oilers are listening to their top players who have said they prefer puck moving, and they're going to look into that. And the best puck mover available is Erik Karlsson. That lines up with stuff. The Oilers' big guns want guys who can get them the puck better. They don't want glassing out. They want on the tape. And I think when you look at this Oilers blue line, Ceci, Kulik, there are guys, Bouchard has struggled this year. Darnell Nurse is not the best passer. He's a better transporter of the puck with his feet. The Oilers don't really have a lot of high-end puck movers. I think it's part of the reason they love Tyson Barrie so much is because he's a good passer. I think Bouchard will get there at some point. Like I said, he's just having a bad year. Broberg has shown he's maybe making strides in that department. But the idea of Erik Karlsson, I hit on this with Connor on Oilers Nation After Dark Saturday. I hit on this again yesterday. What's the cost and how is it realistic? Because they really like Tyson Barrie, and Tyson Barrie has maybe been their most consistent defender this season. But I can't imagine a world where you're bringing in, even if it's an $8 million Erik Karlsson, what's the scenario where you can bring in an $8 million Erik Karlsson and you don't move out the $4.5 million Tyson Barrie? Because the Oilers are dollar in, dollar out. Ken Holland said that himself. What are the $8 million worth of contracts on the Oilers that you can pile up to make room for Karlsson that doesn't involve Barrie?
I think you can get to probably 7.5 would be the highest you can get to for dollar in, dollar out. If you traded Barrie and then one of those $3 million forwards, that's probably the closest you can get, right?
Yeah,
unless you're trading another $3 million forward, and it's like, well, now your team's just almost worse because your forward depth isn't there anymore.
So are you giving up Barrie? Because again, he's cap dump. Unless you're shipping Barrie somewhere else to get an asset back, which maybe you could, considering the kind of year he's having.
Three-way trade, get somebody else involved, and they're also retaining money on Karlsson and getting Barrie something.
I don't think you can get a third.
What does San Jose do with Tyson Barrie?
Yeah, they have no use for him. So you're right. It probably would have to be like a 3-team deal where like you're moving out Barrie for like a second-round pick, and then you're packaging up your next 2 firsts and that second rounder.
But also, if they want a puck mover, why is Barrie going? He's one of the few guys, and I mean, there's all the things with Barrie that he doesn't do well defensively.
Karlsson doesn't do those things that well either.
It's a more expensive version, a better version, of course. Erik Karlsson's a Norris Trophy candidate and a 2-time winner, a Hall of Fame caliber talent. But Tyson Barrie's already basically the poor man's version of that.
Yeah.
So
Jonathan K is in the chat, says trade 3 firsts and whatever else to get EK65 here tomorrow, Kenny. He would put the Oilers over the top in the West without a doubt. And listen, it's easy to sit there and be like, I mean, let's look at Erik Karlsson's stats the last couple of years.
73 points in 54 games. He's a D-man on the Sharks.
Like,
and they're terrible.
He's a 110-point player on the Oilers. I get it.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say trade 3 first-round picks and do whatever it takes. Unless San Jose is willing to keep half, which to this point, they haven't shown a willingness apparently to keep more than 20%, unless San Jose is willing to keep half. You can't realistically pull the trigger on a deal like this. There's no way to work it around. We just talked ourselves into the pretzel of, okay, if your big guns want better puck movers, you go get Karlsson. But you can only get Karlsson if you trade Tyson Barrie. So now you're sacrificing one of your good puck movers to get a better puck mover, but you're giving up 3 first-round picks. Like, it's just...
What a puzzle.
It is.
It's unsolvable. This is why Ken Holland gets paid the big bucks.
If Erik Karlsson was a rental, I said this Sunday, if Karlsson was a rental, sign me up. Because the Sharks would keep half. You'd trade Puljujarvi in one deal, Foegele in another. You'd have your money, and you'd have Erik Karlsson. But it's the fact that the Sharks aren't going to keep half because he has 4 more years. Also, half of Erik Karlsson's lower body is metal, or it's been reconstructed somehow. He's a bionicle.
You should also think about this. Think about it for a moment from San Jose's perspective. And there's 4 years left in this contract. So let's say if the Oilers needed them to retain 40% or whatever to get it down to $6.5 or $7 million. The math's not correct. I'm doing it on the fly. But imagine Mike Greer, who's a new GM in the league, going to the owner of the Sharks and saying, I need you to pay Erik Karlsson, the guy who's going to win the Norris Trophy this year, $5-6 million a year for the next 4 years to play against us in the division.
After he went to his owner this summer and said, I'm paying Brent Burns, a fan favorite, $2.7 million for the next 3 years to play against us.
All that for what? Late round picks and Tyson Barrie? Like, you're going to pick 27th, 29th, and 30th over the next 3 years, and you also get Tyson Barrie? Like, what's the point of that?
So if Mike Greer is going to do it, you better believe he wants 2 to 3 first-round picks to get this thing done. It's just not happening, folks. Like, I would put the percentage at 5% that this deal's done.
So difficult. I think everyone would want Erik Karlsson here, obviously. That's maybe even a stupid point, but it's so difficult to get done. I mean, if they get it done and we look back at it and it's like, okay, well, that was actually like not bad. Like, sure, but I just don't know how it gets done.
Yeah. Also, Aaron, can you just flash up the stats again for Erik Karlsson? I want his last couple of years up to make another point here. And it's that he is having an unbelievable season. The resurgence is great. And part of it is probably because he's not sharing power play duties and all that stuff with a guy like Brent Burns. But last year, 35 points in 50 games. Year before that, 22 points in 52 games. Year before that, 40 points, but only 3 goals, 6 goals in 56 games. Like, this guy has had a couple of years now where he's not Norris Trophy Erik Karlsson. In fact, he was liability level Erik Karlsson.
He hasn't got a Norris Trophy vote since his first year in San Jose. And that was an injury-riddled season where he put up 45 points, 53 games. Yep. Finished 15th in Norris Trophy voting. He was great in the playoffs, but he hasn't been a full season Norris Trophy player since Ottawa. Not considering this year.
So do you want to commit to 4 more years of this guy, and he'll be expensive when he's had one bounce-back season? And again, at the wrong side of 30 years old, with a body that has been through a lot. He's played a lot of hockey, over 700 career NHL games. Are you going to commit to that guy for the next 4 years at a premium cap hit of $7 to $8 million?
Consider the LTIR.
Sure. And maybe that's something where if the Oilers have a chance to chat with him, Karlsson says, I only got 2 more years left in the tank, right? And then I'm done.
This
I'm
year
pulling
next,
the plug.
And he retires and just gets paid LTIR money.
Also right on cue for Leon Draisaitl to get an extension if that happens.
That's what they would need, right? Because Draisaitl's 2 more years after this one?
Yeah.
So you have Karlsson on the books for those 2 contracts?
There's so many factors in this that just don't play out well for the Oilers, besides the fact that Erik Karlsson is an elite hockey player, which is really what should stand above all.
It's
but
a
just
cap
with
world.
Everything else, it's like it just doesn't add up because you're moving arguably your best defenseman overall this season.
Yeah.
Maybe a forward that nobody is even wanted at all just for a cap dump, or does that just become Yamamoto instead of Puljujarvi? And then 2 or 3 first-round picks. I don't know, but
you're paying a premium.
Cup, does it matter?
So I wanted to get to that point too, because Nicholas Nelson says in the chat, yeah, but if we get EK and we win the cup, do we care? No, you wouldn't. But if you get Erik Karlsson and don't win the Stanley Cup, what are you doing? It's just people seem to think that the Oilers are magically one defenseman away from being the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I'm here to tell you they're not.
I have a question.
Sure.
When Erik Karlsson went to San Jose, how close were they to winning a cup? I can't remember.
They had been close, but they were in the finals a few years earlier.
Yeah.
It was 2016 they went to the finals. Then they lost to the Oilers in 17. Then 18 they lost to the Golden Knights in the second round. 19 they got Karlsson was the first year, and they made it to the conference finals, lost to the Blues. That was the year. The Karlsson year was the one where they had that crazy Game 7 against Vegas.
Oh, yeah, with the cross-check and everything.
So they weren't their best ever San Jose Sharks. They weren't the early 2010s, Thornton, Marlowe, Pavelski, Couture, everybody Sharks. They were the not as good version of that.
Yeah. The dying days of Joe Pavelski as a Shark.
San Jose were probably in a similar position to what the Oilers are now, where they think, we're pretty close.
But they didn't have...
But they still had enough to think that
did.
they were going to go get it, so they gave up the farm to get Karlsson. And it's not been a good run.
They ended up giving up Tim Stützle in that deal.
And now we want
Josh
4
Norris
more
too.
years of Erik Karlsson from 32 to 36. I don't know.
I just think
there's so many factors.
Yeah, and I think there's a big gap between how the Sharks would value him because of this season, and rightfully so, and how other teams are forced to value him because of that contract and because of the last 3 years as a whole. Listen, if Erik Karlsson was an unrestricted free agent this year, what would his contract have looked like? Probably nothing close to $8 million. If this past summer, the Sharks said, whatever, we're buying him out, even though they wouldn't have, because that's insane. But if he was a UFA this summer, probably would have gotten paid $4 or $5 million a season because he was coming off 2 bad years.
Yeah, like the Ryan Suter contract. Was it 4.5 million for 2 years? That kind of thing?
It would have been
But
something
after
like that.
this one, though, imagine he's a UFA this summer. What's he going to sign for?
But again, so it'd
2 years, 12.5?
But then it would be signing a guy based off 1 good season, and you sure as shit wouldn't go 4 years for him.
No, you wouldn't. That'd be insane. Unless you were spreading it out 4 or 5 years to get it down to 6 schmills or something like that.
Guitar Maniac makes a good point. They know it's their best chance to move Karlsson's contract. So from that perspective, it's almost like glass half full, glass half empty. Does Mike Grier go to the owner and say, hey, we're going to have to pay Erik Karlsson a total of $20 million over the next 4 years because he's going to play somewhere else? Or does he go and say, you're actually going to save yourself? We're not winning a cup. We don't give a shit. I'm getting a couple of firsts. Yeah, we're going to have to pay $20 million over the next 4 years, but you're also saving yourself $20 million.
But I still, the logic's sound, but I just think about being in the San Jose market and all of those fans there who are willing to go to a game and purchase his jersey. And when you get rid of him, and they're also going to get rid of
Timo Meier.
Timo Meier's gone this year too. So their next best guy on the team is the rotting corpse of Logan Couture. Like there's nothing left there that's going to draw people into the stadium. And this isn't Edmonton where people go every night no matter what.
Yeah.
They have to have somewhat of a product on the ice. And I don't know if it's easy to sell fans in San Jose on the idea of picks 2 years from now.
And I think that's a good point too. There's a lot more that goes into the business side of things than maybe we recognize this time of year. Sean in Calgary says, don't trade for Karlsson and don't win a cup. We just look back and say Holland didn't even try. I heard this story before. But this team made the Western Conference Finals last year without Erik Karlsson. So like, it's not like, and they didn't lose a ton either over the last calendar year. It's Duncan Keith. And that is about it.
Mike Smith.
Well, the goal, yeah, but I mean, the goaltending I think is largely the same product. So go out and try to replace Duncan Keith and upgrade your forward group and go into the playoffs deeper up front with the same blue line, hopefully a healthy Darnell Nurse, healthy Leon Draisaitl, and roll the dice. Like Austin says, let's go get Ryan O'Reilly. Yeah. Would you rather give up 2 firsts and everything you need, pieces you'd be sacrificing off your active roster to go get Erik Karlsson? Or would you rather move 1 first and Raph Lavoie, Ryan O'Reilly? I think I know what I would do.
Which one?
It's O'Reilly. And go get a depth defenseman. Go get Ali Mata. And you got O'Reilly. Get another depth winger. Go get whatever defenseman's out there. It's not Gavrikov. It's not McCabe because I don't think they want to play here. Klingberg sucks. It's someone lower down Frank Saravalli's trade targets board than those 3. But I think there's a better way to do this. And someone else, sorry, I just lost it. Someone said if you trade for Karlsson, that is your move for the next 3 years. Because if you're sacrificing 3 years of first-round picks, you're not getting those picks back. There's no one you can trade off your roster that you're like, oh, we'll recoup those picks in the summer and then we'll restock. Like, no. If you're trading your next 3 first-round picks, that means you're going the next 3 trade deadlines not having them.
And this is Ken Holland. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, Ken Holland's a lazy GM. He doesn't do his job. I'm not jumping into that narrative. But if you look at his history at the trade deadline, he doesn't usually make these huge splashes. He's traded the first round pick once. That was in, 2012 for Kyle Quincy, the year after Lidstrom retired or Rafalski retired, someone like that. They were trying to replace a D-man. And then the next biggest trade in Detroit was probably, Brad Stewart for a second round pick, and they re-signed him. Like, Holland's super conservative and loves the draft. He wants to build a system here and leave that behind. He's not going to gut the Oilers system and leave them with nothing to try and win 1 year. It's just not going to happen.
Sean in Calgary says, no Ryan O'Reilly, give me Adam Henrique. I love that idea.
Yeah, that's good.
$5.8 million for the next 2 years, but if they retain that, it's 2.9. I'd give up my next 2 second-round picks for Henrique if they retain half. And they got to take Puljujärvi, which I think they would because they like him.
I have a feeling that Holland will go for one of the Blackhawks, and I think it's Taves.
I think it's Lafferty.
You think so? I just feel like, there was the obvious thing where he valued the leadership, and that's why he goes and gets Duncan Keith. And then Keith's gone. I think we can all agree they miss that presence to some extent. Holland will probably see Jonathan Taves, 3-time Stanley Cup winner, captain, Conn Smythe winner in the past, and think, okay, this guy will be the right player to have around. Though I don't know how effective he is now because remember, he missed all of 2021 with long COVID, and now he hasn't played in a game because of an illness since they lost to the Oilers before the All-Star break. So that's a little bit sketchy.
And Frank did say on the rundown today, like, that actually might be worrying some teams that, like, hey, if we get this guy, is there a chance he's just, like, not himself? He's just not 100% for the next 2 months leading up to the deadline. Tyler Mulick, our guy in the chat, it says, what about Tyler Bertuzzi? We did hear that name on Saturday night as well. Only 2 goals in 20 games this season, but this is a guy who has hit the 30-goal mark recently, as in last year, when he was healthy for 2 years prior to that, because again, he was banged up the 1 year and then he was sitting out games because of COVID, because he wouldn't get the vaccine and everything. But he was basically 3 straight seasons at 20 goals when he's healthy. And Tyler Bertuzzi could be a legit option for this team. Again, I think part of what Ken Holland wants to do is build up more depth and get tougher to play against. Tyler Bertuzzi, even if you want to call it a fake tough guy act based on the game you watched between the Oilers and Wings the other week, Tyler Bertuzzi retained down to $2.35 million would play fine for me.
He's a Ken Holland draft pick too. Detroit Red Wing. They haven't had one of those since Andreas Athanasiou. So
he's a rental. I like that. Is he a perennial 30-goal guy? No, but I think he could slot into your middle 6 really nicely here in Edmonton. He's like a lower grade Travis Konechny, and I think Konechny.
What were the injuries this year? Was it wrist?
Yeah, I think it was like both
broke
hands.
His wrist, broke a hand or something like that. That would explain why.
4 to 6 weeks with a hand injury.
Hand injury, right?
And then surgery. Yeah,
that's tough.
It's tough for sure.
It would be a nice fit though. The Oilers could use that spark and that jam. We all know having Klim Kost in the lineup seems to really spark them. He skates around,
Yeah.
hits guys and does things. Was pretty noticeably missed in the Montreal game, I thought. I mean, the whole team looked so bad that you can really point out anything from that game as a criticism or a negative. But yeah it felt like they could use more of that presence.
Cato says, does Bertuzzi stay after their rematch? Yeah, the Oilers and Wings. That's actually Edmonton's next game on the schedule is this coming Wednesday when Detroit rolls into town. Great to have the Oilers back on home ice this week as well. So assured for giant game day of the show coming up on Wednesday afternoon, 7:30 puck drop between the Oilers and Wings. They go this week, Detroit Wednesday, Rangers Friday, Colorado Sunday. There's pressure on you to win that Detroit game because things don't get easier from that point on. The Rangers are just, they look like a wagon now that they've added Tarasenko.
Yeah, and
back to cup contender status.
That's the nice thing about pulling the trigger on the trade here a little bit early. I'm not sure what it's going to do for the Islanders, that I'm not sure they're very good at getting Bo Horvat. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But for the Rangers, you go and spark your team in mid-February. That's the thing. Like, why not go ahead and pull the trigger on the deal now and keep the player for longer?
Yep.
And, this is a hard time of year to play. It's the dog days of winter. So spark your team early.
Someone was asking about Bertuzzi and his vaccination status. I don't think that's a thing anymore.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, because he's been traveling to road games and playing on the road this year. So I don't think it matters anymore. Someone was talking about maybe his work visa. Honestly, I don't know.
You'd think they'd be able to. It hasn't been a thing in baseball anymore because the non-vax players were there in the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, Robbie Ray pitched in Toronto.
Yeah, our guy D Cards 35, our beer league goalie is in the chat, and he said, "Forget all this. Can we just talk about pitchers and catchers reporting?"
Yes.
Nate Pearson. Nate Pearson factor into the Jays bullpen this year, Coombsy?
Yes, I think hope springs eternal right now. And I watched that video of Nate Pearson throwing, and he was throwing hard. You could hear the sizzle. Sounded great. This is the year. All aboard the Nate Pearson hype train. He's not going to be a starter. Won't happen. But he's going to pitch like 30 innings out of the bullpen. And it's going to be magnificent.
I'm with you on that. We're probably going to drop a new episode of BJN Radio at some point this week. There's a lot for us to talk about still as the players start to show up. And I told my story about how I saw Vladdy at the airport.
It was a great story.
10 out of 10 story. You love my stories.
You tell really good stories, like the one about lids. It was one of the best stories I've heard. Really riveting stuff.
That's an Oilersnation radio joke for those who don't know.
That's why I'm not on the podcast anymore.
Yeah. Sean in Calgary says Bertuzzi's having a Devon Shore level season almost. Well, he's actually scored twice, so there's that. Also, he's been hurt. Like, I think it's fair to expect that a healthy Tyler Bertuzzi in a new city maybe has a bit of a jump, but he won't cost you a lot. I don't think you're dealing, like, you might not even be dealing a second rounder for Tyler Bertuzzi.
Not 2 second-round picks and a roster player.
No, like, it might be a third and a C grade prospect. Like, it might be a third in Lavoie for Bertuzzi, which I think would be a very appetizing kind of deal. Let's Liam, do you have bets?
Yep.
Okay, let's do it. Betway. What do you like, Liam?
What do I like?
Did we all miss on our game day bets? I think we did, eh?
Yes, the others were not good.
No.
So we missed
they weren't.
drastically.
Yep.
But speaking of the Red Wings, I have them to win tonight against Vancouver. Quite frankly, Vancouver stinks. The Red Wings have now won back-to-back since losing to the Oilers. So minus 106, they're on the road. But either way, Vancouver doesn't want to win games at the moment. That place is an absolute tire fire.
Mm-hmm.
Calgary, Ottawa, over 6.5.
No goalies left in Ottawa. Everyone's hurt.
Exactly. So that leads me to believe Calgary might be able to put a few in tonight. Over 6.5. Maybe Calgary hits it on their own. And Ottawa's offense, we saw it the other day. It's able to capitalize on chances. They got a lot of good talent there. So I think it's a good little matchup. Minus 112 on the over there.
I like that. I'm taking the Flames on the puck line just because of that goaltending situation in Ottawa, and it's like plus 155. Anytime I can get a team that I think is clearly better at plus 155 on the puck line, I'm probably going to take that. So I think that's a pretty interesting spot. I'm also taking the over in Buffalo and LA. LA scored 5 or 6 goals the other night against Pittsburgh. Buffalo leaks goals against, but they have a good offense. LA struggle between the pipes. Over 6.5 there seems like a decent spot for me as well. Shout out to our friends at Betway 19+. Please play responsibly. Also, one more plug for Star Mechanical. Check them out, starmechanical.ca. Moving towards the end of the show, let's just catch up on what you've all been saying in the Nation Network YouTube. Hit that like button as well if you're in. Fighting Amish says Yzerman would fleece Holland in any trade. I mean,
Yzerman's had some bad trades and
Yeah.
bad moves in general recently. He hasn't been that amazing in Detroit. I
No.
don't think.
Everyone just hates Holland for some reason.
It's
I
not
don't
really
get it.
fair.
No, he has done.
It's really not.
I just don't get it. The Anthony CU one is what everyone goes to. Then everyone just forgets there was this thing called COVID-19, which stopped the world. And all of a sudden,
No salary cap room. It was Kind of unfortunate. He also lost
drives me
Clefbaum
nuts.
to injury, lost Larson to the expansion draft, didn't want to re-sign. That's a pretty unfortunate hand to be dealt. I think Cullen's done. Yeah, he could have done a more perfect job and done the exact moves we all wanted him to do. But I mean,
that would have been nice.
The Oilers have, yeah, right. Like that's what we all want. But I mean, he came in and, you know, the Oilers have been a playoff team every single season. They've won playoff rounds and he's drafted in the first round every year. They have a better farm system now than 4 years ago and they're winning playoff series.
Yeah.
What do you want? That's what we wanted, right? When Charlie got fired, he wanted some stability, no more panic trades. No more Alex Petrovich for a second-round pick or whatever it was.
Boy,
no more Brandon Manning. No more Eberle for Strome. Those things don't really happen anymore.
Yeah.
Random rant, but
no,
but we've necessary.
We've done that before on the show where we kind of talk about how people seem to just love to hate on him for no reason. Like
it's just low-hanging fruit. It's easy.
Yeah, you'll see people on Twitter be like, "Oh, can't wait for Holland to do nothing at the deadline," and it's like, well, let's just get to the deadline first, and then we'll criticize Ken Holland for doing nothing if he actually does nothing, because that's a big if right now. I do think at some point he'll get a bit of an itchy trigger finger when it comes to one of these moves. Like he'll want to pull on something. I just don't think, like, you know, here's a little connection I'll draw. Friedman says the Oilers' big guns are itching for a puck mover. They want someone who can pass the puck a little bit better than what they have on the blue line. If Ken Holland is having those conversations with his core players, he's open to doing something big. If you sit there and you're not calling McDavid and Draisaitl into your office and being like, "Hey, what do you guys think about the team heading into the deadline? Should we do something?" If you're not already thinking about doing something, that seems like kind of a, you know, I want to make a big splash. I want to see how the room will react to the kind of trades I'm thinking.
It's also the sign of like a good general manager.
Yep.
Someone who like asks his players what they think they need. They're the ones in the battle. Obviously, I'm just talking to his coaches too, but like players are important to get their input from.
It'd be like, you know, that meme video, I think it's The Onion that does it. And it's these people walk into a room full of like 10-year-old kids and be like, "Who wants to have a pizza?" And then it's the kids chanting pizza, pizza. And they just walk out of the room. It'd be like if Holland called McDavid and Draisaitl and they're like, "Puck moving D-man, puck moving D-man." And Holland just leaves. Does it just acquires Dmitry Kulikov.
Yeah. I mean, that's no, there's no way. There's just no way. What do you think about the idea of Shane Gostisbehere, though?
I mean,
you've brought him up before, Liam.
Yeah, he's just a name that's kind of been out there, right? And if it's a puck-moving defenseman that the Oilers won,
he moves the puck.
He moves the puck.
$4.5 million UFA at the end of the year. Has experience playing the left and right side. Could be retained down to 2.25 or an even 3, and you can flip someone out in the deal.
Not a very good defender, though, right? But it sounds like the Oilers don't really care about that. Just want to go score 20 goals a game, which is entertaining for us. So, yeah, I mean, if the Karlsson one you can't get figured out, which is going to be extremely difficult, then maybe you just go out and get a Gostisbehere and whatever that costs you. Maybe that costs you a second and a prospect, perhaps.
A third and a prospect.
Yeah, like, seems like something realistic. I'm not off the Karlsson train by any means. I just don't know how it gets done. So if that's not possible, then the Ghost is someone I would like to see.
Then you could have a puck mover on every blue line pairing. Then you could do Broberg Bouchard.
Yeah.
You could do Nurse and Barry, Gostisbehere, Ceci. I think
then there's a mover. And then you'd have Kulak as kind of an extra guy, or him and Broberg flipping around on the third pairing with Bouchard. Yeah.
But then Darren is not in the lineup anymore.
And you know what? That's interesting because I could see a scenario where they want to keep Vinny in the lineup a little bit more. But again, like, you run into a wall there. Do you want to upgrade the blue line? Yes. So one of Broberg or Desharnais can't play.
Do you put Bouchard and Desharnais in the same category then if you're the coach?
No.
You're thinking like, okay, well, they're both rookie defensemen essentially. I know Bouchard's second year, but whatever. Like, he's made mistakes this season. He's not been playing great. Like, is it so bad to not have him play a few games and maybe you have just those two rotate in and out if you do acquire another defenseman?
Well, once Puljujarvi is gone, we need someone else to be controversial so they can healthy scratch Bouchard and give us a whole lot of content to talk about.
We could be in the final 24 hours before Puljujarvi is placed on waivers tomorrow or is dealt at some point today. We'll have all of that breaking down tomorrow on the show. I'm going to ask Mr. Saravalli if he can come on a day early. Just because tomorrow's not a game day, I'd rather keep the trade talk going. But Frank will be by at some point this week. He's heading back from the Super Bowl. What did you make of the Super Bowl? You did good, right? You were telling me before the show you won some money.
I missed one bet on the Super Bowl, and I think it was 8 or 9 I made.
Wow.
And a few parlays, and the only one I missed was in a Jalen Hurts. I had a parlay of Kansas and Philly both to score 20 points, and Hurts and Mahomes both to get 2 or more passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
And Devontae Smith stepped out like the 6-yard line to break that one. That was the only one I missed. And I bet Kansas to win. So that was good. It was a great game.
It was a really, really entertaining football game. Like there was like crazy, like kind of grab your head moments being like, oh my God, like with the Hurts fumble and all of that.
So many storylines. What a great script.
Yeah. Good job, NFL. Good script. Can't wait to see what they write for next year.
Rihanna being pregnant.
Yeah, Rihanna's pregnant.
Massive.
Well, I mean, come on.
Her rep. I said it when she was going. I was like, she pregnant? She's not moving the legs.
Well,
very
she
much.
was also having to navigate like a Smash Brothers map.
Yeah, it was
floating platform.
That was epic. But
That
I
was
was
a cool
a
stage.
little disappointed she didn't play Ponder replay.
That's what you wanted?
Well, you know, get a bit of everything for every fan. The OG Rihanna, the new
She
Rihanna.
played Umbrella.
That
Yeah.
was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Could have used something earlier too, like Unfaithful from the first album.
Oh,
Wow, you're going with deep Rihanna cuts. I didn't know you're that kind of a fan.
I'm almost 30. I was around from the start.
yeah.
Fair enough.
That's why I requested Ponder replay.
She has a lot of bangers.
She
All of
does.
it,
Like
she
That's
has
her catalog's
extensive
nuts.
lineup of bangers.
13 minutes and we got like 10 songs.
You
It
couldn't.
was awesome.
You couldn't meet someone, I don't think, unless they were just a huge hater who doesn't at least have one Rihanna song.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. Rihanna's better than Beyonce.
Yeah.
Wow, what a hot take.
Yep.
100%.
What a
Yep.
hot take.
You agree?
I think in terms of like depth of catalog, yeah,
For
probably
sure.
like more
100%.
bangers.
Just more breadth too, like more different stuff
Yep. Beyonce's
Mhm.
got, she can sing. She can belt those chords.
and dance too. Yeah.
Yep. But Rihanna's just, I don't know.
And different tunes.
Producers just got more bangers, more cool songs.
Barbados flair, perhaps.
Yeah.
This is not where I expected the show to go. All right, we're gonna wrap up on everything today. Shout out to everyone who was active in the chat. There was a lot of you today. You love the trade talk, and that's not going anywhere. I think we are 18 days away from NHL trade deadline. 18 days away.
Wowza.
The news will just keep rolling in. Shout out to Star Mechanical, Montana's Sports Closet, sportscloset.ca. Check them out. And as well, Short Ford. We'll have a Short Ford Giant Game Day coming up. Check out more about their service center by hitting the link in the description of today's video. That is a wrap. We'll be back tomorrow, noon Mountain Time. Chat with you then.